Yes, sir. Welcome back to Talking Nets, episode 82. Do I have anything clever for 82? 82, 72 game season. Used to be 82. And we're not halfway through, but we're a third of the way through. Keith McPherson and Hudson Flynn coming to you after your Brooklyn Nets sweep the West for the first time ever in Nets history. An undefeated road trip in 2021? What? Hudson Flynn, my guy, the young Jedi, crushing it on the tweets, crushing it on everything that he can crush, maybe even his schoolwork. I don't know how his Fordham classes are going. I hope the grades are good. Hudson, what's going on, brother?
Man, a whole lot. And I am just going to take this time that you give me at the top of every podcast to pat myself on the back, because 2 episodes ago, before the West Coast trip, after the Pistons game, you asked, how many games are the Nets going to win on this West Coast trip? I said the Nets are going undefeated. We're playing teams 500 and above. Nets don't lose against teams 500 and above. Mr. Burnout has told me to take a bow. Our guy, John. So I'm taking my bow. I'm taking my wins when I get them. Undefeated on the road trip. Never in doubt. Never in jeopardy. It's a Nets world. The Nets run the mild West, as the New York Post put it. Man, I'm just feeling good. I know you're feeling good. And this is a great podcast. It's a great energy. We got fans back in the Barclays starting on Tuesday, which is probably when this podcast is going to be released.
Tonight.
And man, tonight. It's just hype as hell. The Nets are the best team in the league. They said the East was easy and the Nets couldn't even be the 1 seed in the East. They're behind the 76ers, blah, blah, blah. We go out West, play all the best teams, all the best contenders. The Suns without 2 of our big 3. The Lakers without KD. The Clippers without KD. Wins. No losses to talk about. This is the right podcast energy.
The scary hours that were promised. I love it, man. Hudson called that shit flat out. He said, these teams are all over 500. We're not going to lose. I have to go back. I think it was 2 episodes ago, episode maybe 80 or 79. I think it was before the live show. I think it was 79 where you called that. I will go back, find that, clip it, make a video, and put it out there to give you your W, to give you your wins, man. The Nets are 20.
Call me Jameis Winston. I'm eating those wins.
Eat a W. Yo, the Nets are 20-12, right? We are in second place in the East. We are a half game back from Philadelphia. Hey, I think I tweeted out this week. I said something like, who else do we need to beat? What else do y'all need to see? The Nets are not playing around. And what I mean they're not playing around is the energy has changed from that Pistons game. And I think I tweeted this out too. I said, National Pizza Day at Little Caesars Arena. Never forget it. That was the NBA turning point. I don't know if you guys are NFL fans, but there's a show called NFL Turning Point where they show you where everything changes in a game. After we gave up 122 to the Pistons, I think everything changed and these guys started playing differently. I'm proud, especially doing this show. And I know a lot of people listen to the show for the energy, to be pumped up, for the right vibes going into the games. And as Nets fans, I understand if people were like a little worried about going out West after the way we played, against the Pacers, or not the Pacers, the Pistons. The Pacers started the win streak, but I can understand some fans being worried about going out West and potentially losing games, these late night games. You don't want to go to sleep and then the team loses and you wake up to an L, which we didn't have to feel that. We didn't have that experience. And I was going to sleep. I'm washed. I'm proudly washed. Even in the post game last night, I was in the bed. I had to sit up and I wasn't turning the light on. I'm just like, yo, we win. Nets win again. We beat the Clippers again.
It's wins on wins on wins. And the scariest part for the rest of the league is that scary hours hasn't even happened yet. We're not even there yet. It's not a thing. We have played 5 games with KD, and one of those was only for 19 minutes. The Nets have arguably the best player in the NBA waiting to come back. Nick Claxton, I mean. Because guess what? He's coming back. Our AD stopper, our Giannis stopper, Nick Claxton, listed available last night. it just feels like the wins keep coming for this Nets team, and they're not coming at too big of a cost. But obviously, after last night, we do have our biggest cost to talk about: our heart and soul, our uncle, the team's leader, the chemistry builder, the man that turned everything around, according to all reports, after that Pistons game and took the team in the locker room and said, look, we got to play with pride. We got to respect the basketball we're playing. Uncle Jeff Green went down with a shoulder contusion, is the official word. The Nets have yet to release a timetable for him. Luckily, a shoulder contusion doesn't sound too terrible, but he was on the floor. He was in pain after some deplorable nonsense by the most hated Pat Beverly. And I think, I think we should address this even before we start talking fully about these games we played, because that's what everyone wants to hear about right now. What the hell is going on with Pat Beverly?
Fuck Pat Beverly. Like, I got a personal problem with him. And if I ever see him in real life, I'll tell him to his face. Like, that dude is a lame. And I guess when you're not good at basketball, like, you have to just foul and try and be fake tough. Let's play a voicemail because it's right on topic with what happened last night, and then we'll talk more about that.
Hey, yo, Hudson and Keith. Podcast has been lit recently. No, but basically, end of this West Coast trip was really great. And one comment, though. That was like a hockey hit on Uncle Jeff Green right there. That wasn't just a plain screen. That looked like a hockey hit. The way his head snapped, the way he collapsed onto the court. And that's the one thing I am very nervous about. Now, before you record your next pod, there might be more info out, but that is the thing I'm definitely most nervous about. Thanks.
So, yeah, we all felt that. I felt that, what was it, 3 games ago when Uncle Jeff went down? Was it the Suns game when Uncle Jeff went down?
Not the Suns game.
Not
Suns
the Lakers
game. Late in the game.
And we spoke on that on the pod. I was like, that is one guy we can't afford to lose right now while we're still figuring out the center position and just for the morale of the team, a veteran on the team that, like you said some words to the team that got them right, got them fired up, got them realizing like, yo, we have a ridiculous opportunity this year to do something special. We have to take advantage of it every moment. And to see a guy like Pat Beverly, the caller called it a hockey hit. Now, I don't watch too much hockey, but I understand, the checks, the physicality of hockey. Like, we don't need that on the court. And that's what I tweeted out. He started the Clippers game off wrong and ended it wrong. And I really hope this shoulder contusion with Jeff Green is something that, he can just ice up this week as we have 5 games left and we're heading towards the, All-Star break. What are you thinking about? We'll talk Pat Bev and then Jeff Green's injury. And then after that, we'll talk just injuries with KD, Claxton, and the rest of the team.
So like you said, Pat Bev started off that game disrespecting the Nets, but he comes out and look, I played hockey. I'm a hockey guy. He straight up put his chest into James Harden's shoulder.
Clotheslined him.
He clotheslined him right up at the start of the game, bodied him, put him on the ground. And honestly, I think that was the worst decision he could have made because we saw a fired up James Harden the entire game doing it on every part of the court, which is something, honestly, that we've seen this entire West Coast trip with him averaging pretty close to a 28-point triple-double, which is just on another level. But he started off the game wrong, and then he comes up and just open ice, hits my guy Jeff Green right under the arm in the collarbone, shoulder blade area, like the one place that's vulnerable. Like if you hit Jeff Green in the shoulder, he's taking that, right? He's a basketball player. He's a big dude. He's taking that hit, but he got him right in the collarbone. That's what scares me. And then the disrespect for him after they review it, after the Clippers and Ty Lue waste a challenge reviewing that, and we'll get back to that later. He comes out when the Nets inbound the ball and he's mocking Jeff Green's injury right to the Nets bench, right to whoever was bringing the ball up. It was either Kyrie or James Harden's face, and was just talking in their face, bobbing his head back and forth, smiling at him. And goddamn, I've never hated an NBA player like that. It's just like, there is one thing to be, someone who can go out and be a pest, who can bring that kind of energy, who can get in people's face, who can get people mad. We saw Bruce Brown call Paul George a pussy to his face. And like, okay, I like that energy, Bruce Brown. I got no problem with that. Disrespect him all you want. Trash talk him all you want. Like when Kyrie Trash Talk LeBron said, that's your best free throw shooter. Everyone was all up in arms about that because it's LeBron, but whatever. I don't have a problem with that energy. But when you go out, do an illegal play, injure someone, and don't have the self-respect and the respect for the game of basketball to at least, help Jeff Green up, feel bad. But more than that, to go and mock him to his face or his back as he walked away into the face of the Nets team, they deserved everything that they got in that game, which was an L, which was a season sweep for the Nets. And man, I hope we see him in the finals so we can sweep them home in 4 games.
We probably won't see them in the finals. And that's the thing. It's this is competitive basketball. It's the highest level of basketball. I didn't know it was that kind of party last night until I saw Pat Bev clothesline Harden, which activated Mad Harden. And Harden's like, I'm going to give you this 35-point triple-double. Thank you, come again. Pat Beverly is just not a good basketball player. It's one thing when he had the reputation for being a pest. We saw him versus LeBron in the last couple of years. But it's a whole nother thing when you are hard fouling a guy. And then the last thing I'll say on this so we can move on is these refs are consistently trash. I know I'm the guy on the podcast that says it all the time, but these refs don't know when to call a flagrant foul. But they're quick to throw a technical at JJ Redick for passing the ball to a ref. These refs get in their feelings and they throw T's when their feelings are hurt, when they feel compromised. But when the players on the court, like a James Harden, like a Jeff Green, are compromised, where's the T at? Where's the flagrant foul call at then? They're stunned. They don't know what to do at the time, whatever. So watching all this go on is Nick Claxton. But we got the news between games that Nick Claxton is off of the injury report as out. He went from out to available, questionable. We all got excited. There was a lot of memes floating around about trying to tell the bandwagon Nets fans about Nick Claxton, trying to explain to new Nets fans who he is, why we're pumped about him from the little sample size that we saw last year. Either way, it's good. I like that they're taking their time with this kid because he will be a factor for us. I like that they're also taking their time with him because he's in his second year. Right? This is a guy that we could see work with KD the next few years. He got KD comparisons for his build, a lot of Chris Bosh comparisons as well for anyone else out there that hasn't seen Clax play. Hudson put together a little highlight video, but it's good. It's just good energy to see one of our guys coming back and know that help is on the way. Speaking of help on the way, the Hammy boys, that's what I called them on Twitter. I forget who I was talking to. I think it was Lewis. Somebody on there, but I'm like, yo, let KD chill. It was, the Lakers game. We saw KD on the sideline with Shump. I said, oh, those are the Hammy boys. They both got hamstring injuries. They're standing up, rooting the team on. But if they got hamstring injuries, hamstrings or lingering injuries, I don't know if you guys saw the news hit I put out as soon as Malika Andrews said KD wasn't playing. I'm like, all right, well, then shut him down through the All-Star break. He's got a perfect out for the All-Star game. I'm not playing an All-Star game. I got a hammy. And then Shump, don't worry about rushing back either because we know what Shump is going to do for this defense. They can both come back in the second half. What say you, Hudson Flynn?
Man, I say that the Nets, and I'm going to keep using this analogy, aren't even fully operational yet. The Death Star is not complete. We aren't there yet. We've played with a full team, arguably no games this season, and here we are just wiping the floor with the rest of the league. I don't even know, how can you make this team any scarier? But we have defense coming back in Shump. We're going to get Roberson some practices now that we're back home, get him ready to go. Obviously, we have KD coming back whenever he does come back. And we have Clax coming back.
Noah Vonleh.
7-footer. Noah Vonleh is going to get some practices. This Nets team is in a position where they can make moves. They can bring players in. They can kick players out. And they can just solidify becoming arguably the best team I've ever seen assembled in the NBA because it's top to bottom right now. And that's one thing we have to talk about because in that Lakers game, what we saw, especially in that Lakers game, was some great performances by the bench. TLC, someone who has been most hated on by Nets Twitter in recent weeks, came out, dropped 15 points on 5 threes.
Couldn't miss.
And Shamet, couldn't miss. Shamet over this stretch has been pretty good. Struggled last night, almost gave that game away last night, but he has been pretty good for this Nets team. Jeff Green, what else can you say about him? He's been amazing. He's been crucial. When he takes his threes, I expect them to drop. When they don't go in, I'm honestly shocked. And we're adding so much to this team, to its depth, to its top end talent. I don't know how the Nets can get better. I don't know what narratives they need to quash now after they've put their defense into high gear. I don't know what they have to do, but they're going to do it because the boys are back. The boys are on their way back. They're coming into the game, and they're joining the best team in the NBA to make it even better.
What they have to do is beat teams under 500. We've got a few of them coming. What they have to do is not lower their level of competition, their level of play to the team across from them, right? We got the Kings coming in here, the Magic. We got some other games against teams. I think the only team above 500 that we face the rest of this first half is the Spurs. So what I need to see from the Nets is them to continue to build on this chemistry. There's a lot better chatter on defense. There's a lot better energy on defense. Steve Nash, man, I gotta tell you this. Steve Nash is a hell of a coach, and he's figuring it out. And it ain't just figuring it out anymore. It's like, okay, now he's got this thing down a little more. You're seeing him call the right timeouts. You're even getting these like inside tracks and sound bites of what he's telling these guys. Like he was telling these guys, hey, communicate down there, communicate better. He's coaching defense. I don't think I've heard a sound bite of him talking about what they need to do on offense, because obviously that's James Harden and Kyrie figuring that out on the court magically. It's one of the greatest shows I think I've ever seen. Definitely the greatest show we've seen in Nets jerseys. So let's quickly talk about these games just for the sake of time. We're approaching the halfway mark of this pod. The Lakers game, right? We don't lose in Staples Center. I think we've won 3 games in a row in the Staples Center, going back to the game March 10th that the Lakers won right before the pandemic hit and they canceled the NBA on March 11th. I like the Staples Center. I've been there. It's a great place. LA Live. I would like for us to potentially end up there in the finals because we don't lose there. So whether it's the Clippers or the Lakers, hey, one of y'all meet us there in the finals and we'll win any games we play there. Thursday night, we go to LA, another national game, another late game, but it was a Thursday night, so I stayed up. Nets win 109-98. Say that defense played well. They kept LeBron and the Lakers under 100 points. I know LeBron got his 32, but he was having trouble. The rest of them were having trouble on the Lakers, and no excuses about, oh, they didn't have AD. Like, that's what I saw on Twitter and Instagram, and I get it. You know, you didn't have AD. We also didn't have KD. So, like, to me, it's a wash. And neither team was at full strength. We went out there, and, you know, obviously the narrative is Kyrie versus LeBron. And we saw a few different things. We saw LeBron shoot those free throws, and then Kyrie, it was audible. You heard him say, that's your best free throw shooter? We know LeBron isn't the greatest free throw shooter. I think he's like 70% from the free throw all time. And then Kyrie, you know, had the one play that was debated. And that's another thing, too, I want to get out there. When Hudson is clipping these games on Twitter, whatever he says happened in the play, happened. We don't want to go back and forth on the thread with you lames trying to break down what went on. Oh, I saw someone trying to say, oh, LeBron had to defend the 3 when you wrote Kyrie had LeBron lost. And
I mean, LeBron was going like this.
He spun all the way around. So you mean to tell me he didn't have him lost, right, when he made the fake? And it was just a small little ball fake. LeBron spun all the way around to defend Jeff Green out on the 3-point. Like, stop. Like, no. Kyrie.
And look, honestly, cause all the controversy if you want. I'm taking my wins. Kyrie had him lost. LeBron looked foolish on that play.
And that's all you need to see. People that watch basketball, or people that whether they're casual fans, whether they're diehard fans, whether they're former players, coaches, whatever, those clips are on Twitter, my friends. So people that watch basketball, we don't care about your analysis. We care that on Twitter, someone's going to see LeBron do a whole spin and get lost and be like, damn, Kyrie got his ass. And I guess it spilled over to social media. I think I saw a post that said Kyrie and LeBron unfollowed each other on Instagram. What a shame. I mean,
oh no.
Wow, they pressed the button to not see each other's posts. Maybe LeBron just don't want to see that spiritual stuff that Kyrie is kicking, and maybe Kyrie just don't want to see LeBron's receding hair. It's all good. It's all good. The Nets win that game, and I was just proud because a lot of people were saying, hey, this is the NBA Finals preview with or without AD. A lot of people were saying, oh, y'all not going to beat the Lakers, though. We'll see what happens when you face the Lakers. And I was sitting here like, yeah, I'm waiting to see. I'm actually very interested to see what we look like on the floor against the champs. And if these are your champions, if these are the defending champions, we'll see what a difference AD makes, and I'd like to see what a difference KD makes down the line if it gets there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're just talking about things that the Nets have done this week. And obviously we're focusing on this Lakers game. We held them to less than 100 points. And first off, KD was out. Amazing defender. We're not going to discount that. I'm done adding that disclaimer to things. Like, okay, whatever, fine. The Nets are holding teams in that stretch to an average of 113 points per game, which is obviously well down from what it was, but like it's just such a massive improvement from what we were doing, obviously allowing 120 plus to a team like the Pistons. And it's all effort, and the Nets are bringing that effort, and they're going out and getting it from top to bottom. Everyone is bringing that effort. James Harden is like getting in people's face. In that Clippers game, we saw him get right up in DJ's face and yell at him. DJ was complaining about a call, and James Harden was like, no, that's enough. You're not getting calls because you're not playing good basketball. And then we saw DJ go out and play his best game, arguably as a net, in that Clippers game when he got that little game-winning rebound, put back. Got to give DJ his wins when he deserves them. But it's just the leadership from top to bottom. It's the effort and the energy with Bruce Brown, going 100% on every play, every timeout, anything that Bruce Brown is involved in. Everyone bringing that hustle, everyone bringing that attitude, that energy. And that's what this team needs. And I just am hoping against hope that in this stretch of games that we're playing against teams that are not the best teams, not the top flight teams in the league, that we see them continue to bring that energy, because that's that energy that's going to carry us through the postseason, through the finals, because energy breeds defense, and this Nets team needs to keep that defense where it is. And I honestly have no doubt that they will, because we talked a lot about that Pistons game being a turning point, and it sure as hell looks like it is right now.
It for sure is. And kudos to the second unit. They look a lot better, a lot improved. They're getting their timing and rhythm down, and that's it, right? We can't lose leads when the second team comes in. We can't just fall flat on our faces with the second unit. And I feel like they're kind of getting their swag right. Like in this Lakers game, we talked about TLC from 3, TL3. Call that man TL3. Don't call the voicemail disrespecting TLC. Somebody called the voicemail disrespecting TLC last week. I'm like, I can't air that. That's my guy. Like, he's going to figure it out. And I think he started to figure it out because guys like Tyler Johnson have come along, because guys like Landry Shamet have come along. He's like, wait, I'm supposed to be the guy hitting the threes off the bench. Like, I don't want to lose my spot. And last from the Lakers game, I got to remind y'all that Joe Buckets Harris is on this team as the fill-in for KD in the big three, right? The big three is Harden, Kyrie, and Joey Buckets. Don't forget, he does so many good things. It's not just the shooting, even though he is one of the best shooters in the league, in the NBA.
56% from 3 over this last stretch.
Say that. Make sure y'all say that when you talk about Broadway Joey. He's ready for the bright lights, man. When it is a nationally televised game in the Staples Center, he's locked in. He's ready to go. What did he hit?
He had 22 points on 6 of 7 threes in that Lakers game.
6 of 7 of his threes. I was feeling it. I was having a good time. Let's move on now to the other team that shares the Staples Center with the Lakers, little brother to the Lakers, a team that we faced. And the first time we faced them in Brooklyn, I said it felt like an all-star game. It felt like a playoff game. Like the energy and excitement around it was that much. This game felt like Game 7. This game felt especially late when I'm like, oh, we could blow this. This game felt like one of those elimination games in the NBA playoffs where the team is in control, which we were in control for the most part. In the beginning of the game, we were battling. In the beginning of the game, like I said, I didn't know what kind of style game it was going to be until Pat Beverly set the tone, and the Nets did not back down. The Nets matched them. In past years, Nets fans, there's been some games that got chippy like that, And we needed a guy to step up. We need a guy to be tough. Like last year, like Torian Prince was that guy. Like, that's not the case anymore. Now it's like, yo, you piss Harden off, he's about to give you buckets. You piss Kyrie off, and he's refusing to miss. Going into this Clippers game, I didn't know what to expect, but the Nets turned up and they won it. I saw some people also giving my guy Hudson slack for saying we didn't deserve to win this game. We were about to give it away. If DJ doesn't get that tip in left-handed, just giving maximum effort as a veteran, they could have stole that game. You have Kawhi Leonard on the court. You have Paul George on the court. You have guys that can steal the game late, like we saw Westbrook and Beal do to us in a similar type of situation. I'll pass it to Hudson, but the Nets win that game. That was game 32 of 72. The Nets win that game and play defense again. We have to keep speaking on the defense because like Skip Bayless and people on Fox Sports 1, Stephen A., I don't know how much they're going to say that. The Nets win 112-108. We do enough to get the win.
Exactly. And I'll speak on that quickly before I talk about us not necessarily deserving to win that game. The ESPN broadcast, which last night I'll give you some inside baseball on this. Whenever the Nets are on national TV, I hate it because you don't get those broadcasters. But for me, my setup when I'm clipping the games, I can get my clips out much faster if I'm going off the national TV broadcast, which I get on cable compared to the Yes Network that I have to stream. So I can get those clips out a lot faster. So I had to do that. And I'm listening to this nonsense, them talking about, I think the Clippers are the most talented team in the NBA because they can play defense man to man. And I'm like, well, first off, okay, sure, fine, whatever. Just like keep spouting that nonsense. And the Nets are just showing people that you're wrong. And the ESPN announcers pretty much spent the rest of the game talking about how awesome Bruce Brown is, which is the right response to Bruce Brown whenever you watch him play, is just to be amazed at the effort he puts in. But like the effort that the Nets are putting in top to bottom on defense is just electric, and you can't deny it at this point. But after that Jeff Green injury, the Nets look a little rattled. We had Landry Shamet missing some shots, Kyrie taking some ill-advised shots, including that last shot that he took, which was not good shot selection. I got to say it when it's true. It was not a good shot. And I said we didn't deserve to win that game because we shouldn't be relying on DeAndre Jordan's old ass to get up there and make an amazing play to get up there, get that rebound.
We weren't even relying. We got lucky. That was a prayer answered. That was a prayer answered.
It was a prayer answered. But look, here's the deal. The Nets won that game because they earned enough from the universe to get those calls, to get that shot to fall. And that's what happened when Kawhi Leonard gets called for the charge on that last drive that people are all up in arms about. Well, guess what? You should have challenged it, Clippers. Oh, wait, you couldn't challenge it because you wasted your challenge on Pat Beverly's dumbass.
Yep.
So that's karma to me. I got no problem with that. Take your L. Hold your L. That's what you get for being a team full of dumbasses. And honestly, I have no respect for this Clippers team. Like, people hate on like LeBron and those teams
frauds.
Like that.
They're frauds.
The Clippers are just frauds. I'm not afraid of the Clippers because they might have these names up and down the roster, but to me, it just doesn't feel like they have it. And we saw that both games against the Nets, where in crunch time, the Nets just came out and showed them what was up and what teams do when it's winning time. And the Nets went out there and won the game.
Yo, so I'm not going front, right? So I think this game was Sunday night, but Thursday night, I think the Clippers beat the Jazz. And obviously we all know the Jazz have been rolling. They were something like 17-1 in their last 18 games. And then they meet the Clippers and the Clippers beat them. And I think I watched a little bit of that. I don't know if it was on ESPN or League Pass. And by the way, if you have League Pass, you're not a casual fan. There you go. Like anyone with League Pass that's paying $30 a month to watch out-of-market NBA games is not a casual fan. But I was a little shook. Without KD playing, right? We got the news of no KD. And when I saw the Clippers beat the Jazz, I'm like, they might have something for us. I was a little worried, like, I don't know, matchups. Everything is matchups. But playoff P, we know what the P is now. Bruce Brown let us know last night. Like, these guys are weak, bro. Like, they're not it. And, like, Kawhi is a robot and an alien and all that stuff, but he can't do it on his own. They don't scare me. Ibaka, they don't scare me. I just don't see them getting there at the end. Maybe they do come out of the West, but the same way they collapsed, they're going to collapse. And like it's a part of the mojo. You talk about the universe. These are the Clippers, bro. The Clippers they're not even going to win their own city over. Like, the Clippers have never gotten to Western Conference Finals. They've never won the championship. They're the Clippers. And I don't care if you do LA our way and you know, Steve Ballmer's goofy ass can be sitting there. Yeah. Like, it's not going to help them on the court. The universe is on our side. Number 2 team in the East versus number 2 team in the West. Everybody watching last night, we almost gave it up, but we did enough to win. And that is the difference. That is the difference in a team closing in winning time. That is the difference between a coach just starting off in his first couple weeks and now a coach like Steve Nash and company, Jacques Vaughn, Mike D'Antoni, these guys getting experience and taking some hard losses and knowing what to do late in the game, when to call a timeout, when to make subs, right? There was a questionable sub with getting Bruce Brown's defense off in favor of Landry Shamet's shooting ability. Obviously, you needed shooters on the court in fouling situations, but I was fine with it because the end result was that we won without KD, without Clax, whatever. The Nets keep on rolling, undefeated West Coast trip, 6 in a row, and we're heading back to Brooklyn.
Let's
and
go,
fuck Pat
Keith.
Beverly. Fuck Pat Beverly again.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say
forever.
that again.
Forever.
Sorry for the kids listening, but like, you know, this isn't a PG program, Paul George program. I'm actually wearing Paul George's shoes right now, coincidentally. People on YouTube can see that. All right, let's wrap this up, man. Oh yeah, and that's what I wanted to say. Paul George at the end of the game was on a minutes restriction. He missed
so funny.
He missed the last 3 minutes of the game. Get out of here, bro. They can get all the way out of here. Miss me with that. How much is he making to play for the Clippers? Who knows? I know James Harden. Like, let's talk about this before we close. We still got a couple minutes.
We got voicemails too.
We do got voicemails. The James Harden deal will go down as the move of the year, but that is just the icing on the cake that everybody knows. If the Nets get to the finals and win it, Sean Marks becomes executive of the year, not just for what he did in getting James Harden out of Houston to Brooklyn, but when we talk about Bruce Brown and Landry Shamet, Shamwow, whatever, we traded Bruce Brown for a bag of chips. Think about it.
We traded him for a Turgulu Istanbul player, Zanin Musa, and a second round pick, and we saved money.
And you know, you just filled me in before the show about my Duke guy, Luke Kennard. Luke Kennard got DMP'd. It's like, bro, I don't know how Sean Marks sees these things. I don't know how he makes these things happen. I hope that Shumpert comes in and balls. I hope that Noah Vonleh balls, Andre, all of them. And I hope this team gels and comes together and gets it done. And we can all stand on this as Nets fans, young, old, new, seasoned. I don't care if you were there at the Prudential Center. I don't care if you were there in East Rutherford. I don't care if you've never been to the Barclays Center. Like,
we welcome our Swamp
now.
Dragons fans. But Keith, I got a question for you, and I need you to tell me if this is out of pocket, but I was thinking about this yesterday. I can't think of an executive in any sport that has done as much for a team as Sean Marks has with as little, like a more impressive tenure. And I like spent some time thinking about this. Like if you're looking at like a lifetime achievement award, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't go to Sean Marks. Like what he has done for this team, for this city,
we got to win it.
Like,
yeah,
obviously the Nets got to win it. But at this point, I'm looking at Sean Marks and I'm like, the man is a visionary. Like he should be like Billy Bean levels of honor. Like someone needs to write a book about him because what he's been able to do should be the model for all executives in the future.
Well, like when life hands you lemons, make lemonade. I'm trying to think of a better reference. Like he was handed complete shit. He walked in, he stepped in shit. Next thing you know, he comes out with some fresh KDs. Like, how'd you do that? This guy has put together the most talked about team in the NBA, potentially the best offensive team we've ever seen in the NBA, the best big three of all time, 3 superstars in their prime. Harden, like, dude, Harden has unlocked a ridiculous level of the bearded one that we haven't seen. And we were on here draft night. The name of our podcast, Draft Night, was like, this is not a draft preview. We want James Harden because we knew if we could get James Harden on this team, everything else doesn't matter. And Sean Marks made it happen. And I said to you, Sean Marks didn't hang up the phone. He probably was on that phone every week with Houston after the draft. Like, hey, he's looking like he's not having a good time over there. He's dogging it a little bit. He's overweight. What do you need? You see
our guy A Pooch came out and he said
shout out to Pooch.
Deal
Pooch
was done in principle. He was done it. He knew it.
He knew it. And people on Twitter tried to get at Pooch and act like he wasn't credible or didn't know what he was talking about, and he was right. So I love it, man. Let's lean in to the end of the pod with our closing remarks. First, we got voicemails, and I played one already, but I will play another one for you because this is going to be a little longer of a discussion just because of the topic and the length of the voicemail. Let's play that for you right now.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Robbie here. I want to talk about Nets tickets. So I know the Barclays Center is about to open at 10% capacity. I know right now it's only available to season ticket holders, and I've heard rumors that the tickets are ridiculously expensive, obviously. I know because of COVID, all the ticket situation's really out of whack. But assuming that Barclays Center gets to full capacity, let's just say by the beginning of the season next year, what do you think these ticket prices are even going to look like? I mean, as you guys know, a couple years ago, you could just wait right outside the arena, go on StubHub, and get really cheap tickets at a really good value. Obviously, with the big three and, this increased demand that we have for these tickets, that's out the window. So I really have two questions. Number one is, are you guys worried about the prices of these tickets yourselves and going to the amount of games you want to go to just because these tickets are so expensive? And number two, do you guys have any strategy where you can get, or what strategies do you guys use to get cheap tickets, or I guess you could say cheaper tickets now because the tickets are going to be so expensive? Love to hear what you guys have to say. Love the pod. Keep it going. Let's go Nets.
All right. Well, I'm glad we are on this topic about tickets because this morning I spoke to a couple guys from the Nets ticket office. Shout out Riley, says he listens to Talking Nets. And it's an interesting situation. I even was tweeting on it. I was like, well, because the first thing I thought this morning was, how do I get into the Barclays Center tomorrow? I might just go outside tomorrow and talk to fans. Like Hudson had the idea. Maybe we just talk to the fans that are going to the game for content. But you got to have this, was it PCR test or your vaccination? You got to have proof that you don't have COVID and all that to get in. That's one hurdle to jump through. Then two, you guys got to think about how much the Nets lost in revenue, right? Remember those ads that were saying Kings in New York? It had KD and Kyrie in 2019 going into 2020, like get your 2020 season tickets now. And that whole thing kind of fell apart because of COVID. They got to make that money back. And this isn't the type of thing where you can go on StubHub and get it. Like the caller mentioned, I've gotten into Barclays Center for $20. Like those times are over where you could go sit in the nosebleeds. The Barclays Center has literal nosebleeds that are like steep. When you look down, you feel like you could
scary.
fall.
It is my first game in the Barclays Center. I was sitting up there. It was a college basketball game, actually. And I was looking down. I was like 10. I was like terrified.
Those seats shouldn't ever... Those seats shouldn't be ever more than like $50 because they're a scary place to be. I sat there a couple times, but the question was, how do you feel about these tickets? Like at this point, I'm going to wait because these first couple games are for like the platinum season ticket holders, and like the type of money they're talking for these tickets, I ain't got it. I don't even think John Boy Media just raised $100 million in funding and we ain't got it. So I'm going to talk to as many people as I can to try and get in, but I'm not going to be able to put up the money because it isn't just buying one ticket. It's buying either 2 tickets or 4 tickets or group tickets and buying a package for the rest of the games, the 20 games that are going to be in the Barclays Center. And then there's other things like the playoffs, which is a whole other thing. And then, locking yourself in to get good rates for next year. And then I think the second question was like, what do we think the tickets are going to be like next year? I don't know. But I will tell you this. I think I either got this from Riley or talking to somebody. Give it a couple weeks. It's extremely tough to get into those first couple games, which will be tonight in the Barclays Center against the Kings. Awesome. If you're going to that, good for you. Enjoy it. It's going to
pictures.
It is going to be an exclusive thing. You're one of the first people in New York City to get back in an arena. Enjoy that. Post about it nonstop because we are on our way back to doing that more often and regularly like we used to. But Nets fans that are listening to this podcast that don't have $500, $600, or $20,000, $30,000 for a ticket package, give it some time. Give it a couple weeks. I think sometime in late March, more tickets will be available and the price point will be closer to like 150, not 700, and not a full ticket plan. Hudson, your thoughts on the ticket plan? I know Hudson got us into the season ticket holder event last year, which was awesome, but I don't think we got season ticket connections now.
Yeah, not this year. Honestly, you'd be better off like starting your own sports media company and getting press credentials if you want to get in this season. But
so John Boy Media doesn't even have Yankees press credentials. Like, that's something we got to get for the Bronx, because now I'm thinking about, like, I haven't missed opening day in the last like 4 years. And usually people hook me up with tickets to the Yankees. That's how I'm able to go to 40 games a year. But now the game has changed where I'm like, I might have to buy a ticket package, and you can't play the resale market. That shit is dead. Playing StubHub, last minute, SeatGeek, TickPick, Vivid Seats, like doing that's dead, man, because the full stadium isn't available to you. It's 10% or 20%. And even for these first Nets games, I think they're putting like 300 people in. That's like 1%. I don't know, bro. Go ahead. What were you about to say about making your own media company? Like John Boy Media, we should have press credentials for the Yankees and the Brooklyn Nets. But
we'll get back to you on that next season.
Yeah, it's still early in the process. We're still very young in our company and you know what we're doing and who we are, and even putting out an ask for that type of stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't know much to say on that other than who knows. Maybe you can get an internship at ESPN. I don't know. Find a way to get in there. Do whatever you can.
Even with the press credential stuff, they're probably limiting the press. Like they don't need everybody in there. They're probably limiting the press. Let's play this last voicemail from my guy Sarge from where I'm from. Well, Monmouth County, my guy.
Hey, Keith Hudson, this is Sarge from Jersey. Hey, I got to tell you, all week I was nervous about the LA game. I know how great we perform in prime time, but I was nervous. And they showed up. They showed out. If you weren't a believer before, now's your time. Hop on the bandwagon because Nets are going. Let's go Nets. We go hard.
Let's go Nets. Our world, Nets world. Yeah, if you don't, what else do you need to see? Who else do we need to beat? Like I said, I was worried too. I was definitely worried after the Clippers beat the Jazz. I'm like, without KD, like we beat them with KD the first time. Without KD on their floor, they might whoop our ass, but they did not. And I don't know what anybody else needs to see. The bandwagon is on full go. The hype train is on full go. I said I need to see us not play down to our competition, but I think we're past that.
Yeah, honestly, like I said, when we were going to this West Coast trip, I am more threatened by bad teams than I am by good teams. And we're going to see this week, as weird as it sounds, is going to be a test playing against some teams that aren't at the same level of competition that we just played. So we'll see how we do with that. But honestly, I'm not going into any Nets game for the rest of the season with anything but the utmost confidence and the highest expectations, because the Nets are world beaters right now. I want to see them match up against the 70+ win Warriors team right now. I'm not worried about them playing other teams like that.
What, the 97 Bulls?
Yeah, let's see them play the 97 Bulls, then we can talk. But no, I that's what I'm looking at. I'm just saying the Nets and how good they are right now. And I'm thinking, what is their stopping point? And I don't see one. Like a lot of people are talking like, oh, this year's the Lakers year, but next year the Nets. Why is it? Why? I don't get that. I don't get any of the logic, honestly. And when I look at the Eastern Conference, when I look at the teams in the NBA, honestly, I don't see a team that can beat the Nets 4 times in 7 games. Do you? Like, is there a team that I am not fully confident that the Nets can beat 4 times in 7 games?
No, and that's why I said I'm not the hype does not scare me. I don't fear the hype with the Nets. I've seen enough of these players before they were on the Nets. What scares me is health. Same thing with the Yankees. I know the Yankees are stacked top to bottom, but can we stay healthy? I just found out today that Clark Schmidt got hurt. Not trying to turn this into a Yankee pod, but
top prospect. Clark, love that man. Got the
Clark is the man.
The organization.
Trying to get him on Pinstripe Strong. Maybe we can get him now that he's going to have to rest for a couple of weeks. But shout out to our dual Yankee Nets fans that listen to the pod. Let's wrap this up. We got a review. Yeah. Hey, we need reviews. It makes us look good. We're a new podcast. Like, we've only been around a little over a year. Ethan BK, I wonder if that's Ethan Stombeck from Nets Twitter. Might be our guy, Ethan Stombeck from Nets Twitter. But Ethan writes a review, 5 stars, and all he says is best Brooklyn Nets podcast, period. Period is capitalized like the City Girls, period. Appreciate that. That's all you need to write. The best Brooklyn Nets podcast, period. Like, everybody go do that after you listen to this pod, and that'll bring us through the ranks. Even my girl was like, how come when I search Brooklyn Nets podcast on Apple Podcasts, you guys don't come up? I'm like, I don't know. I don't control that. Like, you got to search Talking Nets, but we should be up there with the top Nets podcasts. I did research on every Nets podcast there was, and I'm like, we're one of the top ones. There ain't that many. There's new ones that are starting up now, but we're definitely at the top.
Whole lot of new ones keep popping up on us, riding on the Nets coattails. But I love the energy. I love the energy that Nets Twitter is bringing. And honestly, as the guy that primarily runs our Twitter account, every night when we get new followers, I'm like, man, I love how many Nets fans there are, like it seems like the fan base is expanding, and obviously they are because of bandwagons and all that. But it just feels like this community that was so tight knit that we know, we knew everyone's first name. Like Keith was just talking about Ethan, like it's growing, it's expanding. And this is a podcast for all Nets fans. It's by fans, for fans. And as this expands, as new bandwagons come on, and I mean, no disrespect with that term, it's just it's growing, it's exciting, and it's a fun time to be a Nets fan. So keep getting in on the ground floor, honestly.
Yeah, and I don't mind bandwagons. It's not you guys that get called bandwagons, don't take that shit offensive. Everybody comes on a bandwagon at some time. The reason I like all the teams that I like is they won when I was a kid. Now, the Nets, I wasn't a little kid. I was like 13, 14 when the Nets went to the finals. So that is what pulled me in. And I wanted a Jason Kidd jersey. And then the year after, they got Vince Carter. And I was like, okay, this is my team. I was a Bulls fan as a kid because it was the 90s. They were the Bulls. But then when Jordan went to the Wizards, I couldn't rock with that. And of course, I had to rep the hometown team. But that's what I'm saying now to these people. Like, I was there in the Keith Van Horn days. Like, nobody cares, bro. Like, nobody cares. Nobody cares that you watch games at the Prudential Center in 2010, bro. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, that does not matter. What matters is the Nets are on a historic run with a historic team, and we can build our fan base forever off of this 1 year, right? I used to get jokes. You're a Nets fan? Oh, there's like 100 Nets fans in New York. Okay. There's no real Nets. The Nets, nobody cares about the Nets, right? Because there's this other team that reps New York forever, and they're always worried about us that, like, we have to be little brother to them. Nah, little brother no more. Like, we are the Mecca. We are the ones that everyone's talking about. So let everybody come in however they want to come in. Our upcoming schedule is this. We got the Kings Tuesday. That's tonight, February 23rd. The Orlando Magic, our next game at home. These next 3 games at home are like the premium seat games that, like, you're very lucky if you get to go to. The Orlando Magic, Thursday, February 25th. The Dallas Mavericks, Saturday, February 27th. And we'll have a podcast. We'll have a couple podcasts. We'll probably have a podcast. No, I'm hinting at something here. We have a bonus podcast coming, but we'll have our podcast after the next 2-3 games. But we got a bonus podcast coming, and here's the hint, right? If you follow Talking Nets on Twitter, Instagram, we posted a clip of Wiz Khalifa talking about KD leaving him outside of the club and how he had to leave to get right and find his way back in. And then he met KD in the club with a bottle. We got somebody coming on the pod that could talk more about that, and I'll leave it at that. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review. It helps. Call the voicemail if you want to be heard. We played 3 voicemails today. We could use some more for the next time. The number is 201-870-0461. You can follow us across platforms at Talking Nets. Follow the company, the brand, the gang at John Boy Media. You can follow me at Keith McPherson. Hudson Flynn, where can they follow you?
They can follow me at Hudson Flynn, but you know what I say every week. Follow at Talking Nets on everything. Yeah, the Twitter, but also the Instagram has been popping off lately. Keith's been running the shit out of our Facebook, getting that going. It's all coming together. Follow us. Just run us up, because here's the deal. If you want to get it on the ground floor on what's going to be a pretty major operation by the time the Nets win the championship this summer, now's the time to do it.
Yeah, Facebook, I've been adding stuff. Our YouTube, I've been getting right. I've been bringing the old episodes that were on my personal YouTube to the Talking Nets YouTube, and people are just seeing that we had Ian Eagle, Sarah Kusta, Michael Grady, Chris Sheeran on. Good. It's all building, and we appreciate you. There's so many people that I know that listen to this podcast from episodes like 10, 20, 30 that are still rocking with us now. And that's the Talking Nets fam. And we're growing and expanding like the actual Nets fans are expanding. So it's a good time to be a Nets fan, man. Let's win these next 3 home games as we continue to roll with this win streak, as everybody is literally talking Nets. What a good name for a podcast. Made sense when, we had Talking Yanks and, figured out we do Talking Nets. That's all we got. That's more than enough time. And you know how we close this thing. Let's go Nets, Brooklyn.
We go home.